Here's the story about how an ice bath and the big ass calendar changed everything.
So about a year ago, Tony and I were flying to Vegas to celebrate birthdays, as we do. And while on the flight, I texted her and said, hey, are you going to buy the big ass calendar again this year? Because I knew she'd had it the previous year and I wanted to hear about her experience. So this is our conversation in flight.
Confession time. I didn't actually use my big ass calendar last year. I opened it, I hung it up, and it stayed completely empty for 365 days. But this year, I'm going to use it.
So in flight, she said, I wasn't going to, but convince me as to why I should. To which I responded with a very compelling ask, because Tony ended up rebuying one. And I, as the overachiever type A that I am, decided I should buy one not just for myself, but for everyone in my family. So I bought 5.
I was very excited about this. I only bought one because while I am type A, I am not as much of an overachiever. And I don't know, I don't want to skip ahead, but we got to Vegas, we met in person, and we were so excited about our type A, our big ass calendars and how we were going to use them together to plan out our year.
Yes. So we ended up doing a spa day and we were determined to do a cold plunge, which does not work great for either of our personalities, but we decided it was be a moment of self-growth for each of us together. And so we did it the first time.
We stayed in for 30 seconds. I immediately ran out like a chicken and jumped back into the hot tub.
We decided that was the worst decision that we'd made on this trip so far. But then something, I don't even remember like what the actual decision was in the hot tub. We were like, we're going to go do that again.
So this is where my type A kicked in. I felt like going in an ice plunge for 30 seconds made me a quitter. Mm-hmm. I felt like I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't trying hard enough, that I failed. And so I was determined to go back into the ice bath for, I don't know if we set a time, but we said we had to stay in for longer than a minute because the first time I couldn't make it 30 seconds. So we went back into the ice bath.
And it was really odd. They tell you about this when you're reading the optimize your health stuff and everything. But at some point, it really did kind of like relax. And we started having this more meaningful conversation. And Tony looked at me and she said, I need more friends in my life like you. And of course I wanted to cry because, oh, me too. But then she went on to explain and she said, because you push me not just in life, but in business. She's like, so we're on a flight to Vegas to enjoy a birthday celebration. You're like, what are we doing this year? Let's go do more things that we can do together and in our businesses. And that was when we decided we wanted to start Type A Circle again. We had been in masterminds together through the years and could both point to how those masterminds, that accountability, that those moments of pushing each other had impacted both of our businesses.
But there was a little bit of a problem. And I will say this, we've said this in many videos, we love men, but all the masterminds that we had been in, or most of them had been mixed masterminds. And there was a part of that where we both felt like we couldn't share everything that we were going through in those masterminds. While it was very comfortable to share about business, it wasn't always comfortable to share about other things. The other problem was most of those masterminds were completely focused on being a digital content creator, which is what we were at the time. And that was great. But we had both moved on to other things. Liz founding a SaaS company, me working as a CMO, and we didn't really feel like that was aligned anymore with where we were today. So Type A began.
So we started working on it and we came home and within a couple of weeks, the big ass calendars arrived and I never opened the box.
So here's a little fun fact about me. If I say something out loud, it is very hard for me not to do it. In 2015, I was speaking at an event, and it was an event for digital content creators. But at that point, I had actually moved into the world of e-commerce, and I'd started an e-commerce store, and it was doing okay. It was growing. I was happy. And for some ridiculous reason, I stood up in front of this crowd in September and said, I'm going to do $100,000 a month by the end of the year in my e-commerce business. Now, mind you, at the time, I was doing $15,000 a month. So not super realistic, but something came over me. I said it out loud. And you better believe in December of 2015, I hit $100,000 a month in that e-commerce business because I said it out loud. So jumping forward 10 years, basically, I said out loud to Liz, I'm going to do the big ass calendar this year. So when my big ass calendar arrived, I cleared off the dining room table of all the dirty laundry, got out the Post-it notes, the dry erase markers, and I planned out 365 days of my year. Stickers, color-coded by activity, over-planner extraordinaire, and I'm not even an over-planner.
And this is where my type A archetype kicked in as well, because I'm an avoider, right? And so I also cannot pick one manageable task just as part of my existence. And so I bought 5 thinking that I was going to do this with our whole family. We're going to have this whole thing about we were doing the weekend events and the annual big goal, all the things that go into the big ass planner. But what that did then for me was it became a task that was so overwhelmingly large. It was heavy emotionally. It was heavy on just so many things to do that I failed then to take the clear next steps on getting it across the finish line. What it turned into was we did indeed launch Type A Circle, right? We have the community, the YouTube channel is established and running. But I did not do my big annual goal, which was a big ruck in Jacksonville in November. Tony, on the other hand.
So I filled out my calendar. By the end of January, I had every single month, everything. And when you get the big ass calendar, and I think we love the calendar. They have a lot of structure that goes along with it. So I had planned my big thing for the year. I had planned my monthly things for the year. I had planned my every 8-week things. And that became a prison for me, because I had to complete all the things that I put on my calendar. And in February, I got news that I had some health issues and I was probably going to need a pretty major surgery at some point in 2025. And while that is news in itself is pretty hard, I was more devastated that I was not going to achieve everything on my calendar. And I came home and stared at that thing that was now sitting above my desk in my office. I looked at every day, 9 hours a day, and I felt completely lost and abandoned. And I actually didn't know how to go on because my hustling strategy, there was no way I could hustle when I wasn't allowed to get out of bed.
If I put those into 5 people's worth of a full year of Misogi and annual and every 8 weeks, I'm just going to avoid it. And it was a great idea. And I love the conception of an idea, but I didn't know how to break it down, or I didn't take the time to sit down and process through each. So in Type A Circle right now, weekly, we're doing weekly check-ins. What are the next 1 to 2 things that we're getting done? And for me, this has really helped me when I get into these situations where something feels so emotionally heavy, so overwhelming. It gives me a place to say that out loud so that I don't disengage from where I actually want to be. So I'm getting those goals across the finish line more often.
And my takeaway from the Big Ass Calendar was that the Big Ass Calendar is your guide. I'm actually very thankful that I did fill it out, because in spite of everything that I dealt with medically, I still was able to do some of the things that I had put on that calendar because they were important to me. And I think that's where the calendar is successful. And you don't need the calendar to do this. You can do it in a notebook. Mapping out the things that I really wanted to achieve in 2025 made it achievable for me, because I looked at it, I had a goal, and I worked towards the goal. And it made me frame my decisions as, will this help me get closer or further away from my goal? And so for me, I had to realize that it was great to put these goals down and be able to have something to work towards, that decision point. But what it wasn't good for was locking me in and creating this prison of, if I don't achieve everything on my calendar for 2025, I'm a failure. I think the important takeaway from this is we know our Type A archetypes. I know I'm a hustler. Liz knows she's an avoider. In knowing that, we could look at something that didn't go exactly the way we wanted it to, understand why, and make correction for the next time.